Music filled the soul and got people on their feet in the Queen City, but it wasn't the only reason Buffalo was on the move.
People was working then, and everybody came to Buffalo, and business was booming.
When I was a young man living in this city, everybody had a job.
It may be hard to believe now, but in the 1930s, 40s, and 50s, Buffalo was considered by many African Americans as the city of opportunity. Those who lived the life say the area's industrial boom, led by the auto and steel industries, offered a chance for a better life.
I heard about you could get paid by an hour, and I had never heard of anybody getting paid by an hour.
Electa Corton and her friend Mary Chapelle are both 97 years young. Chapelle, who moved to Buffalo in 1935, says African Americans were recruited from the South and got jobs in steel plants because immigrants refused to do the work.
Europeans said they'd commit suicide before they swallowed that heat in those 3 plants. They couldn't take it.
The jobs that African Americans often were given or allowed to accept in this period were the jobs that would have been labeled Negro work.
Dr. Felix Armfield is an associate professor of history at Buffalo State College and has done extensive research on Buffalo's black community.
That community in Buffalo of the 1920s and 30s and 40s is by and large a working class community.
I did the housekeeping just like everybody else. You got $1 a day, a sandwich, and a token.
But Eva Knowles was capable of much more. Eventually, a dare led to Eva Knowles making history in Buffalo.
I took the dare. I applied for to become a student.
Knowles broke the color barrier when she became the first African American to train as a nurse in Buffalo. Buffalo City Hospital, the forerunner of today's Erie County Medical Center, was the proving ground.
They never heard that blacks were not accepted. If you wanted to be, for training, you had to go to New York, Chicago, Baltimore.
Knowles' nursing breakthrough made headlines in newspapers across the country. But in Buffalo, it was difficult getting papers here to tell the story.
In those early days, we had 5 black newspapers. 5. They would not put it in their papers until they saw my license. In fact, I argued with a patient right here in Buffalo. You're not an RN. Nurses can't be, black nurses can't be RNs.
The one-time director of nursing at Roswell Park Cancer Institute made history and opened a door that had been closed to African Americans in Buffalo.
Eventually, from that, all the hospitals began to accept blacks in their schools, and every hospital had a school.
Some scholars believe Eva Knowles is one of Buffalo's uncrowned queens. The idea for Uncrowned Queens, which eventually led to a website and a book, was born from plans for the centennial celebration of the Pan Am Expo in the Queen City. Dr. Peggy Brooks-Bertram.
Because there were no projects that really looked at the contributions of African American women, we decided that that's what we'd like to do.
Dr. Brooks-Bertram and Dr. Barbara Nevergold say they've documented more than 500 uncrowned queens in Buffalo.
They built this community by building their churches first, and from their churches, building their schools, building social organizations, building networks that reached far beyond Buffalo, as a matter of fact.
Snapshots of the life. The photos taken by Dr. Nevergold's father, the Reverend W.B. Seals, show the tapestry of the city's African-American community.
What the pictures show are how people lived because he went into the living rooms.
Reverend Seals, who led the faithful at the Cold Spring Baptist Church, used those living rooms and the streets of the city as a living photography studio. Photography was a sideline job for Reverend Seals. Now, some of his pictures are on display at the Buffalo and Erie County Historical Society. Dr. Nevergold hopes her father's work inspires future generations.
I hope that they'll take a look at the photographs and also a look at the history of the time.
When we come back, it's a preservation area like no other. You won't believe your eyes when you see how landmarks tied to history and visions for the future are coming together in downtown Buffalo.
Sweet, sweet sound in your hearts of those that can finance us to see that this building is put back into shape.
Prayer and song give new energy to the Michigan Street Baptist Church.
It gives me an excitement.
Bishop William Henderson is the church caretaker. The Michigan Street Baptist Church once served as a portal to freedom for runaway slaves. Their hiding place was this tiny hole in the basement. But that history and much more was nearly lost because of serious structural problems. There were 11 layers of roofing on the building.
It was just a miracle of God that the roof, with the weight of the snow, the damp snow, didn't cave it in.
We brought you the story of the Michigan Street Baptist Church several years ago. At that time, there was talk of restoring this landmark. Big plans with an even bigger price tag. But today, that talk is much closer to becoming reality.
The roof has been completed. The rafters are stabilized. The back wall that was bulging out has been partially repaired.
The bishop's prayers are being answered thanks to the Buffalo Niagara Freedom Station Coalition. The coalition has been able to secure more than $500,000 in the past year to preserve this landmark. Buffalo City Court Judge and Coalition Board Member Robert Russell.
We're hoping that this could be a centerpiece for tourism here in the city of Buffalo. Not only does it represent a part of history, Buffalo's history, but in addition it also represents part of national history.
Much of the exterior work on the Nash House, which sits behind the Michigan Street Baptist Church, has been completed. It was home to the church's longtime leader, the Reverend J. Edward Nash Sr. Students have helped catalog what is being called a treasure trove of history. Reverend Nash left behind books, papers, and letters with links to the early civil rights struggle.
And so the move is to start the interior, get the House Museum completed, in preparation for 2005, although it should be ready by this time next year.
The Nash House, Michigan Street Baptist Church, and Colored Musicians Club are all part of the city's recently designated Michigan Street Preservation Area. The designation aims to preserve black history as well as nurture development and cultural tourism. The plan appears to be working. Bonnie Ryder is the new kid on the block. The former Buffalo public school teacher wants to turn this building, just a short walk from the church, into the Mud Pies Children's Museum.
We have an interactive museum for kids.
Some of the exhibits will focus on black history and include the Underground Railroad.
But we want to make sure that they understand that the Underground Railroad developed because of basic brutality to begin with. And we want to make sure that the story is told not in a romanticized way, but in a realistic way.
Authenticity is the key to heritage tourism. And in Buffalo, what you see is a real part of history.
You know that so?
Here at the Colored Musicians Club, the music and the legacy play on, despite all the changes in society. The hope now is to restore this old landmark and keep it active so that visitors from around the country and around the world can also get a glimpse into the soul of a city that is still in the jazz groove. For Milas Hairston, I'm Rich Newberg. Good night.
Things that went on up here in this building had an impact on the cultural fabric of African Americans in Buffalo.
It was like if you didn't go through Buffalo, you haven't lived.
This was the proving ground. All plays, acts, dance, things came from New York here first.
I think Buffalo's African-American community has made enormous contributions, not only to social and cultural, but politically and economically as well.
We give free music lessons up here, and we teach the kids.
Okay, not bad, not bad.
That's a legacy. That's something that you have to do.